that the Dallas Wings have fired head coach Latricia Trammell. She spent 2 years as the head coach for the Dallas Wings. Before that, she was an assistant coach with the LA Sparks. She is just the fourth coach this year to get fired. Fourth coach this year to get fired. Let's go through it real quick. I wanna show you all the press release that the Dallas Wings have put out there. Anyway, here's the press release that the Dallas Wings have put out. It says Dallas Wings President and CEO Greg Bibb announced the team that parted ways with head coach Latricia Trammell. And he says, after an extensive review of our basketball operations department, which included interviews and conversations with stakeholders across our organization, I have made the decision to relieve Latricia Trammell of her head coaching duties with the Dallas Wings. On behalf of our entire organization, I thank Latricia for her efforts and wish her well moving forward. Latricia Trammell went 31-46 in 2 seasons with the Dallas Wings, including 2 for 3 in playoff appearances. In 2024, the Dallas Wings finished with a 9-31 record and in 11th place in the standings, missing the playoffs for the first time since 2020. Greg Bibb also says, in addition to a new head coach, the Wings will also hire a general manager. As part of our year-end review process and in conjunction with our organizational long-term strategic planning, I have decided to expand and strengthen our basketball operations through the hiring of a general manager who will oversee the day-to-day operations of our basketball group. The search for this individual has already begun, and I hope to have more news on this hire soon. The general manager will lead the search for the next head coach of the Dallas Wings. Now, I think that's a smart move that he's going to hire the general manager before he hires the head coach. This is something that usually is the case. You have the GM come in, decide on their player philosophy, on their coaching philosophy, and then hire a head coach in response to that. Someone who can sort of fulfill what that GM wants, right? This is something that did not happen for the Chicago Sky. For the Chicago Sky in 2023, when they were looking for a head coach and a GM, after head coach and GM James Wade left, we saw them hire the head coach first, which was very unorthodox, very different. They hired the head coach in Teresa Weatherspoon first, then they hired the GM Jeff Pagliacca second. And at the time, they said they were doing things different and they were in lockstep and all this other stuff and everything was honky-dory, and then they fired the head coach. So clearly that didn't work out well, and the GM's still there. So clearly that didn't work out well. So it's smart on Greg Bibb to make the decision to hire the GM first and have that person hire the head coach. So it's going to be a while, likely, before we see the new head coach for the Dallas Wings, because they're going to have to hire that GM first. I do anticipate likely that GM is going to have to be hired, I would say, by December. I would say that GM would have to get hired by December. The reason why I say that is because you need to have that GM in place before the expansion draft, so that way that GM can select who they want to the 6 players that they want to sort of restrict from the expansion draft. So that's something that's going to have to be solidified. So we're going to see this GM get hired, at the latest December, because they're going to have to be in place so they can make the decisions in relation to the expansion draft. Let's continue on to the last paragraph of the press release. Says, the investment in, this is Greg Bibb still talking, the president and CEO of the Dallas Wings. Greg Bibb said, the investment in human capital in our basketball group aligns with other long-term strategic investments we have been making in our organization, including our move to the city of Dallas, highlighted by a new practice facility and the renovated Dallas Memorial Coliseum. These investments will best position the Dallas Wings to continue to be a leader on and off the court as the team pursues WNBA championships while making a consistent positive impact in our community. It's kind of what I talked about earlier, right? The reason for moving on from for the Dallas Wings, it had to do with the fact that one, the team needs to revamp. Two, in 2026, they are moving from the suburbs to the actual city. They will have a practice facility. They will have a new arena, and they're looking for a quality product to put on the court when that happens. All right. So let's talk about Latricia Trammell's record. So Latricia Trammell first started her WNBA career as an assistant coach. She was the assistant coach for the San Antonio Stars in 2017. And she did one season with the San Antonio Stars. Then in 2019, she became an assistant coach for the LA Sparks. She stayed there for a long time. So she stayed with the LA Sparks for a long time. And then in 2023, she was announced as the new head coach for the Dallas Wings. Now, when we talk about Coach LT, which is her nickname, we talk about her being a sort of players coach of sorts. She's a very passionate coach. She's a coach that was really trying to foster a relationship with players. And we saw it in 2013 or 2023, her first season with the team. We saw a lot of success. That year, the Dallas Wings were fantastic. We saw them have 22 wins on the season, 18 losses. They were pretty high up in the playoffs. One of the things about the Dallas Wings in 2023 that was huge, yes, they had a new coach. So it was a mix of a lot of things, right? You had a new coach. You had Satu Sabally finally be healthy and have a fantastic year for Satu Sabally. We saw Arike Ogunbowale have a really good year as well. And those were your two cores, right? Those are two cores. And once we saw success with them, the team started winning games. And Dallas, they ended up losing they made it to the playoffs, ended up losing to the Las Vegas Aces as they went on to win another WNBA, their first actually WNBA championship. Second, I should say. We saw a lot of success in that first year for Coach LT. We saw a lot of success, and it was like, okay, all right, let's see how she does in year two. Year one, she was a coach that actually got 11 votes for Coach of the Year. Ultimately, in 2023, Stephanie White, the head coach of the Connecticut Sun, ultimately she won the Coach of the Year. We saw, I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted by the comments. I'm sorry. We saw her find a lot of success last year, Latricia Trammell, and this year it was like, okay, how can you build off of the success that you had? You saw a career year for Satu Sabally. We saw Arike Ogunbowale still doing her thing. You had other players sort of being able to step up and make stuff happen. We still saw that they decided to keep Kalani Brown and the Tierra McCowan sort of twin tower type of deal going. And it was like, okay, what are you going to do next year? Let's see what 2024 has to offer for the Dallas Wings. And unfortunately for the Dallas Wings, there was nothing good that really happened this year. We saw this team deal with injuries even before the season started. We saw the news that Satu Sabally was hurt in the offseason and she was going to miss the first half of the year, which in a lot of ways really did just sort of start off this team on a bad footing. This team was on a bad footing real quick because you had, I would say, probably one of your best players get hurt, right? Arike Ogunbowale has a decent season, but not that great. You saw a lot of not so good play. We saw the Dallas Wings sort of get destroyed in games where they really shouldn't have gotten destroyed. We saw them have to deal with just a lot of injuries. We saw Maddie Siegrist, who was coming into her second year this year. She dealt with some injuries, right? Satu played 15 games. Maddie Siegrist played 27 games. Natasha Howard, who said she's not returning, who basically has said she's not returning to the team. She only played 27 games. This is a team that had to have a couple of hardship players throughout the year to sort of make do, right? We saw Odyssey Sims on the team for a good while. She ultimately, she was on several hardship contracts, but there were league rules that prevented her from actually getting a rest of the season contract with the Dallas Wings. So that's why, it's partially why she, left and went somewhere else to finish out the season. This was a team that was just in upheaval. They turned over the ball constantly. They were not whereas last year they got a lot more discipline, or whereas 2023 we saw a lot more discipline from this team. 2024 that was out the window. Turnovers galore, not good defense, not an efficient offense, and it was clear that Latricia Trammell, while she had a great first season, this year was terrible for her. It was absolutely terrible for her. And then, they finished the season. How bad? 9 wins, guys. 9 wins. Yeah, B-girl, Monique Billings was on the team as well. 9 wins for this team. 9 wins, 31 losses for the Dallas Wings. The same team that won 22 games in 2023. So, with that information, Greg Bibb, the president of the Dallas Wings, he thought about it. And he was like, you know what? I think we need to move on. So that is the news, guys. That's the news. Latricia Trammell is out for the Dallas Wings.